Thank you all for your continued engagement and for your engagement today and for the vital work that you do. There are certainly lots of challenges, but as evidenced by everyone's participation today, we have tools and people needed to address these challenges. The Department of the Interior values USGS and the research that so many of you do, and your work gets us closer to actionable science that is transparent and inclusive for all. And now it's a pleasure of mine to turn the mic over to USGS Director Dave Applegate. Director Applegate, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike. I am Dave Applegate, Director of the USGS, and very much appreciate the opportunity to help to welcome you and kick off this important symposium. And a big thank you to Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Brain for his remarks and participation in today's symposium. On behalf of both Mike and myself, I wish to acknowledge that wherever we are joining from today is Indigenous land, part of the homeland of Native people who we recognize as the first conservation stewards. I ask that we acknowledge the heritage of today's Native Americans and respect the vibrant Indigenous cultures that enrich this nation today. A hardworking group of DOI and USGS team members have organized today's symposium, and I would particularly like to acknowledge Lisa Pelstring, who's the department's senior advisor and Urban Waters Federal Partnership Lead, Doug Beard, who is chief of the National Climate Adaptation Science Center, and also as part of the National Climate Adaptation Science Center team, you already heard from Mia Wawrick and Jordan Bush, and also want to acknowledge Alexandra Jurolman, as well as from our regional cast. I want to acknowledge Catherine Smith, who's the Southeast Climate Adaptation Science Center Regional Administrator. Also, Gabrielle Filippelli from the Midwest Climate Adaptation Science Center, and Chrissy Hopkins, USGS Research Hydrologist. So thank you all for your commitment and dedication to getting this event off the ground. When we think about the Department of the Interior, I think the tendency is to picture those iconic Western landscapes. And indeed, when the USGS was formed back in 1879, it was to provide the science that was needed for a physically expanding nation, to map and assess the geologic and water resources of the West. But today, that expansion is in the economy, in population, and in technology. The need has never been greater for objective science to support a dizzying array of environmental, resource, and public safety decisions across a wide array of landscapes, including urban centers. Indeed, as we think about the complex impacts of climate change and those cascading consequences, they are probably most pronounced in urban areas where the impacts can have an even greater effect across diverse and highly concentrated populations. As the science arm of the Department of the Interior, the USGS has no regulatory authority or land management responsibility like other DOI bureaus, but we inform regulatory and management decisions by integrating foundational data and multidisciplinary expertise to deliver real-time situational awareness, long-term assessments, and other decision support tools. We're committed to delivering USGS science to those who need it the most, including underserved communities, in a form that they can use. It's one of my highest priorities as director to ensure that our science is usable and useful in decision-making, that it's relevant and valued. And as this administration doubles down on its efforts to address the climate crisis, the science produced by our teams across the USGS every day has never been more important or needed. Urban landscapes can be impacted by climate change in a variety of ways, including degraded water quality, fragmented habitats, invasive species, contaminant spills and transport, reduced groundwater recharge, or increasing streamflow flashiness, and many others. Excess stormwater runoff in urban areas can increase flooding or contaminant loads in local streams and rivers and cost cities millions of dollars to mitigate. These complex problems take a collective effort to tackle them. Many federal and university urban research programs have emerged over the past 20 years to address pressing issues in our growing urban environments. These programs address topics such as urban forestry, urban greening and public health, urban waters, and nature-based infrastructure solutions to increase climate resilience. Across the USGS, our researchers are addressing a variety of urban climate-related issues. For example, our Northeast region created the Urban Landscapes Capabilities Team. This is an essential asset addressing impacts of urban development on water resources and systems. The team assists our other regional science centers in developing science programs that provide technical support and partner with other federal agencies and projects, such as the Urban Waters Federal Partnership that Mike mentioned. The USGS Next Generation Water Observing System takes advantage of substantial advances in water science together with emerging breakthroughs in technical and computational capabilities. NGWAS provides real-time data on water quantity and quality in more rapid and affordable ways than previously possible and in more locations. We're piloting a Sentinel network of low-cost, low-power sensors in select urban areas for early detection and warning of flash floods. With estimates of increased magnitude and frequency of flood resulting from climate changes, developing a network of sensors will also provide data needed for studying trends and will allow urban planners time to engineer solutions. A web-enabled dashboard will display and analyze real-time data for threshold exceedances and automatically send alerts to critical response teams before flooding occurs. Urban water contaminants is another key area where USGS scientists are collaborating with urban stakeholders to study contaminant inputs from urban environments and the impact that they can have on surrounding ecosystems. Storms allow contaminants from urban environments to flow into surface waters due to runoff and sewer overflows. With predictions of increased storm frequency and intensity related to changes in climate, the USGS is using innovative tools to provide information that's needed to help water resource managers mitigate stormwater contaminants in drinking water sources and recreational areas. And as Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Brain mentioned his remarks, the USGS is one of 15 federal agencies and more than 28 non-governmental organizations involved in the Urban Waters Federal Partnership. We joined this partnership in 2017 and in collaboration with communities have been part of funding numerous projects that improve urban waterways. The water quality monitoring, assessment, management, evaluation, and education provided by our scientists helps increase urban communities' climate resilience to increasing rainfall and flooding in urban areas. Well, for example, multiple USGS water science centers are evaluating a novel in situ instrument for remote microbiological sample collection and analysis in urban waterways to investigate fecal contamination. We've deployed these instruments over a broad range of hydrologic and geographic settings and are collaborating on general guidance to standardize methods to collect, analyze, and interpret data across the USGS. Once fully evaluated, these instruments can provide another tool for our researchers to remotely and safely sample a location to evaluate rapidly changing bacteria concentrations over a range of hydrologic and climatic conditions. Last April, the Walnut Creek watershed located in Raleigh, North Carolina, was added as the 21st Urban Waters Federal Partnership location. It's an area where flooding, rapid development, and socioeconomic displacement are significant challenges within the watershed, primarily concentrated in the historically underserved Southeast Raleigh area. With this designation, 15 federal agencies are working collaboratively with local partners to restore the Walnut Creek watershed, mitigate flood risk, and support healthy people and ecosystems. The USGS role in this case is as the federal liaison for the site, and we're already partnered with the City of Raleigh to assist in development of a flood early warning system to predict the location and severity of floods using rainfall forecasts and real-time precipitation, stage, and discharge data. Another key area is in microplastics. Within other Urban Waters Federal Partnership watershed locations, we're partnering with communities and policymakers to reduce trash and plastic contaminants in urban waterways, particularly during storm events. Microplastics in the environment are of growing concern to water resource managers and have been documented by the USGS and other researchers in freshwater environments. As we evaluate the impacts of climate change on the landscape amidst the many other cumulative and interactive threats, our climate adaptation science centers are considering the natural and cultural resources that exist within urban and urbanizing spaces, the interacting impacts and feedback systems of urbanization with other land use and ecological changes, and also the potential climate adaptation strategies that might be unique to urban systems. Today, we're going to hear more about these kinds of projects, in addition to all the amazing work that researchers are doing across the country to not only advance climate adaptation in urban environments, but to also partner with urban communities to develop equitable outcomes. Particularly excited about the Emerging Research Spotlight session that's going to be beginning at 3:15 p.m. Eastern, that'll feature up-and-coming research on urban climate impacts, ranging from urban land cover change, urban heat and drought, urban fire and urban flooding, urban greening, and how our USGS science can better serve under-resourced populations facing these issues by co-producing science with communities. By explicitly including urban and urbanizing ecosystems into our research priorities, the USGS is seeking to reach a broader segment of the American public and address historical inequities. Every member of the USGS, no matter what their role in their organization, is focused on delivering science that matters. And the common thread that I hear as I visit our centers across the country is our partners and our end users rely on us. They rely on our data, our expertise, and all these information products and tools that flow from the important collaborations that we rely on to ensure that the science is making a difference. So thank you for the opportunity to help kick off this symposium. Very much looking forward to it.
I'd now like to invite Sachin Shah, manager of the Social and Economic Drivers Program for the USGS Water Mission Area.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sachin Shah, and I'd like to briefly discuss here the opportunities to leverage science to advance environmental justice in urban areas in a way that emphasizes both the science and the historical structures and are not mutually exclusive to climate adaptation strategies. When applying this type of approach to environmental justice, such as flood risks in urban areas, it's critical to examine the root structural causes. And what I mean by that is that it's crucial that we peel back multiple interconnected layers to really grasp the systemic drivers, which really is where actionable USGS science comes in. Now, when we talk about disproportionate exposures from climate hazards in certain communities, they play out in a wide variety of ways, right? Disproportionate flood risks or wildfires, for example, in low-income communities cannot be understood with just looking at their current geographies or just looking at infrastructure deficiencies, right? The question is, how do we do this regardless of the science disciplines that we have in the USGS? So when we're looking at understanding the historical structures, it's imperative for us to look at actionable science in EJ in a different way. And what I mean by that is decades of redlining policies from the 30s have systematically situated low cost housing on cheaper, high-risk lands like floodplains, right? So what that means is this has created intergenerational cycles of vulnerability. It's examined, so what we need to do is examine that root cause as part of our science research and how and who we work with, right? So to effectively address these injustices, we need to take an approach that recognizes the complex, interconnected root causes. So for example, education, employment, public health, infrastructure, and ultimately the environment, right? We can't just look at water quality or floods or ecological risks in isolation from housing locations, for example. So in our endeavor to apply our science and achieve measurable outcomes, the question that we should not forget is how can USGS science help advance EJ, knowing that the structural components are not mutually exclusive? And that is a complex and huge endeavor to take on. So untangling and transforming that systemic level of compounding injustices is the critical work ahead. So what we really, at the very basic level, is looking at focusing on community level risks, informing adaptive management such that we can improve climate adaptation strategies to minimize social vulnerability and maximize resiliency. But to capture all of that, what we really need to do is have co-produced actionable USGS science for equitable outcomes, right? Not just outcomes, as it were. So what that requires is a new standard, right? Leveraging data in ways where we can uncover and quantify environmental injustices by mapping and identifying hotspots, for example, conducting science together with communities as equal partners. Lived experiences here are crucial, right? Lived experience and knowledge are critical data in and of themselves, as science is often overlooked or undervalued that, right? So at the end of the day, science alone can't solve decades of structural practices, but science can be a powerful tool to make visible the invisible injustices and co-create a more equitable and sustainable future for all. So again, very briefly, and there's many of these, but 5 top goals that we see, priorities that we see, are the intentionality of who we serve, developing equity-based research science questions, risk-informed analysis for community resiliency, co-producing that science with the communities themselves, and ensuring that social vulnerability is in fact integrated into analysis. Thanks very much. Enjoy the forum, as you'll be seeing excellent examples of